Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here, and my guest today is Roslyn Hill. And Roslyn is a retired teacher, but also an author of multiple books, such as Latch, Hook, Crochet for Beginners, and How to Make a Face Using Two Stitches. And you also recently wrote the Crochet Art for Schools and Beyond, right?
That's right. I'm working on that at the moment. Yes.
Right. Well, let's before we start with that part of your life now, tell me how you started. Like, when did you start crocheting? How did you discover freeform crochet for yourself? What was that journey like?
Well, I've been crocheting for many years, and I'm more of a craftaholic, would you believe? But just in recent years, I've started doing crochet for schools because I've been a teacher. I've sort of latched on a way to, that's a good word, isn't it? Latched on a way to teach children an easier way. So I learned freeform crochet about 10 years ago with Myra Wood, and that that sort of gives me this idea that you don't have to have a pattern to be able to make something. So that's how that began, really.
Well, I interviewed recently, well, not that recently anymore, but I interviewed the Belgian teacher who is known in wide circles as Mr. Knit Bear. And Wim told me that when he started teaching his students how to knit or showing them basics of knitting or crocheting, he noticed that they were lacking the fine motor skills that like people from our generations and previous generations had.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah,
notice the same thing with the kids that you were teaching?
yeah. I think because of COVID, and I've been trying to get into schools with what I do, and because of COVID, I haven't managed to do that very much in the past couple of years. But I've been working in a school in Wales, and the parents like it, the teachers like it, and most of all, obviously, the children, they just can't stop doing it. And I'm finding there's a lot of support for it in the school that I'm in at the moment. I've also taught in Nottingham, and I taught in a school there, seniors, and they were doing textiles. And this was a great opportunity for me because I hadn't taught seniors before, but there were a group of 13, 16-year-olds, which might sound a bit daunting to teach them crochet all at once, but the way that I do it, I'm able to do that. So it went very well.
Well, tell me about the way you do it. How do you do it?
I use a latch hook.
I have never seen it before. The first time I saw it was when I was doing research for this interview and I saw you mentioning it. So I went on your Facebook page, which we're gonna put
Ah,
in the description of this video so people can find your Facebook groups. And I
yeah,
saw them there and I was like, oh my God, what is that? So tell
yeah,
me
yeah.
more about
Uh,
it.
the other the other tool that I use is this smaller one, which is I have a knitting machine, and this is a knitting machine tool. So incredibly enough, the latch is very similar to all the needles that you get on a knitting machine. So in some respects, you could actually call this crochet knitting because that's the same sort of latch that is on the knitting machine. Have you ever had a try it
I
using a
haven't.
knitting?
I mean, I understand in theory how it
Yeah,
works.
the theories, if you go backwards and forwards. So I first started doing this. A lady came to me. She was came to one of my classes, and she said, "I've never crocheted before." I said, "I can knit, but crochet is so hard." So I just sort of reached over instead of an ordinary traditional hook. I reached over and picked up this hook, and I said, "Let's try this." And by the end of the session, she was able to crochet. So I started doing it with children.
Well, tell
And
me the difference between the traditional hook and the latch hook. Like, what does latch hook allow you to do that makes it easier?
the thing that makes it easier is that, let's have a little look. I did come prepared. The thing that makes it easier is that, especially with children, but also with beginners like this lady I've been talking about. So what I'd like to demonstrate to you then is how I teach it to children. And I call this the busy finger, and that busy finger has to control that loop on the hook. If you don't do that, when you're trying to do it, it's going to move around like this. So I tell them to make sure that they control that loop on the hook. And then you yarn over, and then with pincer fingers, you take that loop over the end, it closes the latch, and you bring it back to your busy finger. And that's how it works. And when you do that, yarn over, pincer fingers, back to your busy finger, yarn over. And because I've been doing it such a long time, I can actually do this very quickly, like this. I actually, one of the first children I taught, she said, I can do this with my eyes closed. And I said, she was 7. And I was quite surprised, but I know I can do it quite quickly. So that's how I work. You see, this finger is just pulling.
It does look much easier than like
there's the chain,
right? Because I do a little bit of crochet, but at least for me, because I'm a knitter predominantly, it seems like very fiddly, but this looks much simpler.
It's simpler. And what I do with I would, if I went into a school, like I'm going to go into a brownie group shortly, and I think they call them beavers. They're 8 to 10-year-olds,
right.
And I'm going to go and teach them. Now that's a good age. There is a group younger, but I know if I go to that group first and they get started, they'll teach the younger ones, and the younger ones can get enthusiastic, and the older ones can see what they're doing and maybe take it up to their level. So yeah, I'm going to go into this group and do that with them. So that's the age I would do. But I do drop in workshops sometimes, and so people are passing, and I might be to fair or something, and I would like to have a go. And I once had a lady, and she had a little baby with her, about 2, and she sat on the floor. She took the latch hook, and the babe, she was using the child's hand to do the yarning over, and she did everything else, but the child was yarning over with her. But what I find is when I teach in schools, and I'm teaching sort of 5, 6, 7-year-olds, if I have a group around me, they can see what's going on, and then they teach each other. It's remarkable how. I mean, I wouldn't be doing it, would I? If I did, I've been a teacher. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think it worked, and it works. So, I mean, my book, this next book is just about using 2 stitches and all the things that you can do just with 2 stitches. So if you've got a length this long, you can pick up some loops on your hook. This is one of the processes I do, picking up stitches, and you just pick a few loops on your hook like I'm doing there. So instead of your very first lesson, instead of doing a row, you can yarn over and pull it through all of the loops on the hook, which is easy because you've got this latch. It can easily go through. And what you've got there for the very first lesson is a flower.
Oh, that's
4
amazing.
petals. So children are doing these, I mean, they're doing longer lengths. They're picking up lots of petals, and they're putting them in their hair on a hair clip. So what I'm doing is really relevant to children. There's absolutely no rows and rows and rows of stitches, learning the traditional stitches. They're doing things just with chain and slip stitch. You would not believe, because when I started doing this, I thought, let me just keep on with this 2 stitches idea. And I started to do an eye for a face, and it turned into this. But this is done just with 2 stitches. So I started with this eye, and then I did the other, and I thought, oh, this is going to be really big, because the eye was quite big, just using the 2 stitches idea. But the whole thing is just done with 2 stitches. So I started thinking, what else can you do? But the first thing they can do is a rainbow headband. And it's literally just a line of a foundation row. And then you do your loops across it. You pick up some stitches, so you've got some loops. And then instead of trying to go into the chain itself, because you've got people say, well, how do you crochet with that? It's round and a little bit obstructive when you're trying to get it into your chain. But in actual fact, I make bridges to go under. So when you're hooking in, you're actually hooking into that hole.
Right.
I mean, you could go on with this and just hook into that hole, do a chain, hook into that hole and do a chain, and hook into that hole and do a chain. And then you would have a flower with a different color around it. And the I was mind blown really about how much you can actually do just with these 2 stitches.
Well,
And
I was watching on your Facebook and the group. I was looking at the pictures of some of the projects that the kids created, and I was blown away by their creativity. There was like a picture of the little toy kitten, the skirt that somebody made for it.
yeah,
And there was like a goldfish made out of the crochet and multiple flowers and friendship bracelets. And it was like,
that's right.
really, you
That's
made
right. This is just a purse, and it's all chain and slip stitch. So when I'm working this, you would be working into the holes that you've made on the previous row to make it easier. And you can imagine you can make a bowl in the same way. You can make eyes in the same way. It's limitless, really, how much you can actually do just using those 2 stitches. So if I was teaching in a school, I wouldn't be looking to go much further than that. And that's how I would. And my next book, of course, is how to make a face using 2 stitches. It's not a pattern book, but because every face will turn out differently.
Right.
So that's a book that's on there. I am going to redo this book because I feel, you know, when you write a book and you get feedback, you sort of put it together. It's fairly thin. There isn't a lot in it. I want to sort of expand on this a bit, so I'm going to rewrite it and bring it out as book 3. The book I'm writing at the moment is book 2. This book is book 1, the first book I wrote. I wrote this book in 2018. So we're 19, 20, 21, 22. I have been crazy about this since, 4 years. So
well,
I've got...
what, like, I'm admiring about you, because you're telling me that you're a retired teacher, but I don't see any retirement there. Like, you work, like, you're more prolific now than you probably even were in your teaching career.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you get into your 70s, I'm 72, and when you get into your 70s, I just feel, because I've got this ability to make things easier, and I know it in my heart of hearts, I know it's going to work, and yet I'm only at the first stages of that. Then it's almost like I've really got to do it. You know, I haven't got many years left. I might be here, but in my brain, I'm trying to have you used Canva on? I'm using Canva to write these books, and it's like, I mean, today I went on Google Drive, and I've got a little booklet on Google Drive, and I must have put it on there 2 years ago, and I've forgotten about it. And it tells you how to make the headband, and I'm like, why didn't I remember that I put it there? It's because of this memory recall that I don't have anymore, that I'm thinking I've got to do this really quickly to get it to sort of make it happen.
How does your family and your friends react to the fact that there you were, a teacher, something you do, you know, half a day, and then you go home and you check the homework, and then suddenly you retire and you rediscover yourself, and now you're a book author, you're a YouTuber, you're on Google Drive, you're using Canva to write your books. I mean, this is like crazy advance, right? Like, what's the reaction of your family and friends to all that?
Well, my husband, he is absolutely supportive. He knows that I've been doing it a long time. He's very supportive, but we have great fun because obviously it drives him bats from time to time. I don't know about you. You're a crochet. You're a crafts person yourself, and it's like it becomes obsessive, doesn't it, a little bit? But yeah. And other people, like you say, are saying, well, what's she doing that for? I can't actually let go of it. But no, I had it's brought a lot of into my life, really, especially in recent years, because I had a group of ladies. I was desperate to find evidence that this would work, not just for children, but for older people as well. And I had the opportunity to work with a group of ladies locally, and they've become friends, and they were they found what we're doing with a latch hook. They'd never crocheted before at all, and they found it very difficult. So this they're telling me now, if it hadn't been for me, this has been quite therapeutic for them. And they're older ladies. They've been coming. We actually have a glamping site here. I don't know whether you researched that at all, but we have a glamping site, and I've said, come along, Susie, bring your grandkids. And Jan comes along with her grandchildren. And suddenly I've got a new social set of people who are really interested in what I'm doing. So yeah, friends of I'm finding I'm getting more friends from doing it, and that is really exciting. It's lovely. Really like that.
Well, how was your journey with social media? Because you're active on Instagram, you're active on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you like on different platforms. Is that ever frustrating, or you just look at it as like places for inspiration? Like, what's your relationship with social media?
Well, over the last 4 years, I've had about 3 different coaches online to tell me how I can get this out there, how I can find my audience, my niche, all these business words that, I mean, I'm not a business teacher person. I'm just a teacher. But yeah, the social media stuff is like, you've got to do it. If you don't do it, people don't know you're there. So yeah, I've tried it. I've even done crazy reels, sort of reels that you sort of poke your eyes round and this sort of thing. And I can't do the ones where you throw the wool at the screen and it comes up with another picture and a beautiful thing. So, but I do my best. You can't do everything. I quite enjoyed, like, we're chatting now and I'm enjoying this. You can tell that. And you will enjoy it because you've got so many YouTube, lovely YouTube. But if anybody's watching this, get on subscribe to this lady, because she's got so many lovely fiber artists on there. I've been researching it myself, and it's wonderful what you do. It's absolutely wonderful what you do. So yeah, during lockdown, because I couldn't get into school, which is what I wanted to do, I started to do my own crafts, because I'd had this period of time when I'm trying to get my book sorted and things. But I ended up pushing myself to my own limits. So this is how I came to doing faces, and that's one of my pieces that done with this small latch hook, this one. But I want to show this because I want to be able to say to young people, I'd like to get into. I've only been in one secondary school, but if they started early, then by the time they get to secondary age, they could be doing things like this. It isn't as difficult as it actually looks.
Right.
This one I did, and I'm working on now. This is my mom. She's 102. My mom is 102. But this is when she was about 17. So this is what I'm working on now. It probably looks like somebody in the 40s. It doesn't. It's not a fantastic representation of my mom, but I found this quite difficult. I didn't. It's not where I want to keep going at it, because it takes such a lot. It's if you see any of these on the internet and on these fiber sites, the people who do these, they're very, very artistic and very, very clever people.
Well,
so
I ask you about that because, and I agree with you that like there are some artists that do freestyle crochet, and I interviewed a few who like really depict like every line and every shadow, and it's like really like a portrait. And then there are people who go to like Picasso kind of style, and it's like absolutely like their own representation.
Abstract.
Right. Do you think like it's difficult for people to let themselves be creative in their own way? Like, do you think we have this expectation for the kids, especially probably, that it has to look perfect, and if it's not perfect, it's not perfect. Like, do you think like
Yeah,
children are easier that way on themselves or harder?
yeah. The way I put it when I'm teaching children particularly is that there are no mistakes. Whatever you make, you can, if you're not happy with what you've got, just put it to one side, keep it as what I call a treasure. And actually it can come in useful later, because you can make, you can use all these bits that you've made already, whether they're made with fancy yarns or whether what color yarns they're done with, but you can actually put them into a collage. And I met a lady, Marina de Jean. I think she's from the Netherlands, and she was working with some refugees, and they were doing faces on canvas. So she took my idea of being able to do the crocheting, but they were using them like a collage. So the eyes were, they'd already done the eyes, or they made the flowers for the hair separately and put them all onto the canvas. So, and these bits could be the hair. You know, if it might look not very good when you do it, but when you put it into a hair, in the hair or in the background of some floral bits, you know, you can pop it in there and it will look or even, you know, if you're doing a scene, an underwater scene, say, it can be the ground cover. So I don't think that there's any mistakes when they're making something like this. A flower can be, look at this is a longer bit here and the shorter bit here. That's what flowers are like.
Right.
So I don't, I tell children that there's no mistakes, and I think that gives them confidence, you know, to be able to do it, and
I mean, I
they
think
love it.
absolutely wonderful, because it's probably give them confidence to try other things in their life, not just crochet, but like to try some stuff that they were afraid they're gonna make a mistake and it's gonna be. So it probably gives them this confidence that there is no mistakes in anything you do. You just learn from it and you
Yeah, that's
create it.
right.
Well, another friend of mine who I interviewed, Louis Boria, who is better known as Brooklyn Boy Knits, he was working with a bunch of volunteers in public schools in Brooklyn and New York, teaching children how to knit or crochet. And I asked him a question that I want to ask you. I asked him, like, is there ever a child that you cannot teach how to knit or crochet?
Well, um, I mentioned earlier the 2-year-old who was helping his mom, and the last I went to the holiday club at the school, because we're having the school holidays at the moment in the UK, and I was able to go there, and there was just a few children, and one little boy came up to me, and it was obvious that he wasn't going to be able to carry on his own, but all he did was the yarning over. So of course, and when he couldn't do it the right way, I was holding his hand as he went over, and he was mesmerized by what was going on here. And how big is the chain? Look how big the chain is growing. So he was involved, but while he was doing that, he probably didn't realize at all that he was actually watching me do the whole thing, but all he was doing was the yarning over. So I see this as being, it's the ability of the child is any child can do it. I did go to a group of children not so long, about 2 or 3 months ago. I did a group with SEN children, special needs, and there were about 6 of them. We were in the local library, and one of them, I said afterwards, that lady, she could do this on her own. If you keep doing it with her, she'll get the idea and she'll be fine. The others, it was just an activity for them where they were producing a bracelet to take home. So I wouldn't have expected this. They were adults, special needs, and I wouldn't have expected them to do it on their own, but it was a fun activity for them to do. They do some amazing paintings in the same group. I was really impressed with the paintings. So it's just, like I say, it's not for everybody. Um, I found, one of the things I have found is that it's not traditional, of course, and I do get a lot of people, not a lot, I'm not a lot of people, but I do get some people saying, well, why are you using that? You should be doing it the proper way. And of course, the proper way is to do rows of stitches. And the first thing you're going to do is a dishcloth. And you're going to try and learn to get the sides straight. And it sounds like I'm knocking that, but I'm not. I'm saying that this is easier. And I don't have any proof yet, apart from Jan, who's one of my ladies who was on my local group. Now she's making cushion covers. Last time I saw her, she's making blankets, and beautiful blankets with shell patterns on. And she made a bag for her husband, and she's even done granny squares. And I said to her, Jan, are you still using a latch? She says, I know, and I've never used anything else. I don't know how to use anything else. And of course, I can do all the different stitches. So it's like with the pair of us, I said, Jan, I can't believe it. I said, you're the only person apart from me who can actually crochet with this latch hook and do anything.
Right.
Because, of course, the ones I've taught so far are only doing chain and slip stitch. Although in the first book, my YouTube channel, I don't know whether you research my YouTube channel, but in this book, we start with learning bracelets. So the bracelets, the bullion stitch is one where you go wind it round and round and round and round. And that's probably, if you're an expert crocheter, you turn to a latch hook to do that stitch, because it goes round and round and round, and you've got to pull the yarn through all the loops on the hook. And that was one of the reasons why I chose this stitch, because you could make a bullion stitch bracelet with it, which has got like little bullion bobbles all the way around it. And it's something that only an expert crocheter would do. Some people can do a bullion stitch with a traditional hook, and that's great. But some advise using this latch hook to do it. Right. But I teach that as the next stitch after doing a chain and slip stitch. It's the bullion stitch. So yeah, there's advantages of using the latch hook in that respect.
Do you find it difficult for the kids to keep attention and not get frustrated with the process? Because like nowadays we used to like instant gratification. Like you want to know some information, you like write on Google. You want something done, you want to calculate something, you go on your calculator. You know, it's like, do you find that they get frustrated, or do you find that it's a meditative process for them?
I think the majority of them cannot believe that they're doing it. I tell them, this is your little machine. And I said, and you're going to use this, and you're going to make a chain. And then after that, we can make a flower, we can make a headband, we can make bracelets. And they're keen and they're successful. I mean, as I've said, even the ones who are helping me go off with their bracelet. So in that respect, it's easy for them. But I did have one child and in the class, and I'd been introduced to the class, and he said, I'm going to be doing some crochet. And the little boy sat next to me, and he said, I'd like to make a pair of socks. I don't think he had the concept. I just don't think he had the concept of the process that's needed to be able to make anything with yarn. But yeah, I did find that when I went to my holiday club, the little ones, because of course some of them were only about 3 and 4 years old, once they got their hands on the wool, it had gone. They were playing with wool, which was, I just thought that was fantastic. And I said to the lady, all you need to do is to put some wool in a box and put some of these latch hooks in, and they can play with them. Right. It can be a toy. It's not like it's pointed or a danger to them. So yeah.
Well, when I was little, I was probably 6 or 7. I was spending summer with my grandma, and one of the times, I guess, she was trying to entertain me somehow, because there was like not too much other entertainment around. So she taught me how to knit, and it took her a couple days probably, but like I knew the basic knit and purl stitches by the end of that vacation with my grandma. And then many years passed when I didn't touch it, and I only rediscovered it 5 years ago. But it was almost like muscle memory. Like it took me one YouTube video and I remembered how to do it, and it was like very natural that it came to me. what's your hope? Like when you teach these kids, what's your hope for them? Do you hope that they're gonna crochet all their life? Do you hope that they're gonna remember it and come back to it at some point? Like, what's your hope for them?
Well, my hope for them is that we can get crochet art into schools. And I think if at one school, like the school I've been in so far, if they continue it, actually go back in September, and they've invited me to go back because they like what I'm doing, they like what the children are doing, and I can take them to the next level. I've also got in contact with the senior school that the children who've done a bit with me are going to go to. So I can also go in there and continue with them. So hopefully they'll be making something like the faces, or we call it painting with yarn, don't we? And they can make anything they want to make. They can make a scarf. They can make things like the purses and so on. So my hope is that yes, they will go on and be able to make things. However, they do say that if children are using these skills, then they're using manipulative skills. They might be useful if they're going to be a surgeon, or if they're going to be using their hands and they need fine motor control with whatever they're doing. I mean, they're all on their iPads, aren't they? Their hands are going like mad, aren't they, on their iPads and their things? But so yeah, I think my hope is that they've got such a lot of time that they're spending on their screens, that I would hope that this is a way to do something different and get into some sort of craft activity.
Right. Well, what do you plan to do this year? How are you changing as an instructor, right? Because you already have a few years of experience of teaching children to crochet. How do you notice you change?
Do you know, I went into school and I couldn't believe it. Every classroom that I've been in has got a huge screen. Now, we didn't have this, did we? Huge screen. And I said to the ladies who were there at the holiday club, there were two of them who were active in school as teacher assistants. And I said, they had a go. This is therapeutic. They like doing this. And I said, well, I don't want to come into your school and be the teacher. I need to retire. I need to do something. I said, what I'm going to do is try to teach the teachers so they can do it, and put the videos up on their screens so the children can watch how to do it. I've got over 50 videos, and there's quite a few of them learning bracelets. Each one they learn a different stitch, the boolie on, the puff stitch, or put flowers on, and those videos can be in the classroom up on the screen. Children can be sitting there and actually watching them. So I want to back off. I want to write my books. I want to teach teachers how this can be done, and maybe just get back to doing my own crochet and do that as a hobby. If I've done that, I feel I've achieved something in life.
Right. Well, I feel like also what I love about your method is when we think about crochet or knitting, we're thinking about historically, right? The practical use of it. It has to be a garment, it has to be those socks that the boy wanted to knit, it has to be something that can be used. And I feel like you're opening minds about just using it as art and just, exploring your wild side and like doing something that doesn't necessarily have to be practical. It can be practical or it can be art. And I love that about your method.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I call this the bridges method. Um, I wrote in my book in, I think, 1823, the very first pattern that was ever published was of a purse, and it was made using arches. And I looked at it and thought, yeah, this isn't new. People have used arches before because it's so simple to
Right.
use an arch and then to actually hook into it as you go back around it. And this is where this idea to do a purse came from, because these are the arches that that they used in the early days. It was published in a magazine called Penelope in Holland, now the Netherlands. So yeah, it's incredible, really, that the history of it can go back so far. And I do call it the bridges method, and because I don't know anybody else who uses that method. Maybe everybody you would start using a double crochet or a single crochet or a treble, and I don't. What I don't do is use a pattern, of course. So it's all about being experimenting. It's all about being creative. And if you want to make a scarf, you can. You can even make a shawl. I've made a shawl. Didn't have a pattern for it, but I just went sort of across and back. And if you do small pieces, they can always be stitched together. So that's how freeform works with this, what they call scrumbles. I call them latch patches of work that can be put together. And you can make a top. Can you see that?
Yep.
So that's a jacket with sleeveless jacket, and it's just been stitched together with things that I've made in the past. This one was when I was with Myra Wood, and she taught me how to do freeform crochet, and that started off. This one here is in my book. That started off as just the face, and I've added things on it. So yes, they can go ahead and make clothes. It's not just, but this, of course, is way down the line.
Right.
This most of this is just chain and slip stitch.
I love how it's like reversible, basically, because you can see the images on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for this. I just hope it will help, because I just need to get my message out there. This is something very, very different. It's very easy. Crochet the easy way.
Well, how can my viewers help you? Like, what's best way would you feel like it's being helpful?
Well, I don't know whether I found my niche, but I think it's schools and teachers. And I think if the way they can help is if they know a teacher who would like this in their school, I can help them get there with it, because I can say, this is my YouTube channel, you've got the screen, put it up there and see what you can do. And if the children need me to come on like I'm coming with you now, I can do a Zoom. At least, I've never done this before. I don't know how. I suppose
now you do.
I've done meetings with family, so yeah, I could do it. I've had all family in front of me when we've had parties and things, but I haven't been the one who's got us all together. I've had to sort of get my daughter to do it or something. So I could do this where I get to teach. I'd like a group of teachers. I mean, that would be brilliant if I could teach the teachers,
Right.
because yeah, that's how they could help me. Anybody who's out there who's watching this, and teachers or school who'd like to do this, and the costs are very little. These hooks don't cost a lot. Yarn could be. I tend to get just did double knitting cut in lots of different colours, but grandmas can contribute to the yarn, and you can get your own yarn collection in school. So it's not an expensive hobby at this stage, and also it's a clean activity. There's no mess to clear up, and the children can take their work home and bring it back the next day. It's an easy activity for a teacher. Once they get going, I had a group of older children in the primary school. They liked it so much in the morning, and the teachers allowed them to come with me in the afternoon to teach the little ones. So the children teach each other. It's very basic to start with: a chain, then a flower, and bracelets.
I think
and
it's
hair
like
clips.
it's also very important for them, because it's everything is on the screen now, and everything is on iPads, and they don't spend time actually making something. So I think it's like very refreshing for them, and a skill that can help them find peace and meditate in the future and be creative and do their own thing.
I had a group of 6-year-olds sitting around a table in front of me, and I was videoing them as they were working. And it wasn't till I took the video home that I realized they were conversing. They were they were just quite happily doing this. They were talking about dying. It was an incredible conversation that I'd captured, and I didn't even know it happened until I got home. They were saying things like, "Oh, well, you can die when you're 100. No, you can die before that. Yes, but if you're silly and walk into the road, you can die and get run over by a car." And this discussion was going on. And yet all the time they were crocheting. And I thought, how often do they actually get that chance to be doing something which is a bit mindless? So they just start to converse. I'm sure they do, perhaps when they're playing, and maybe some activities in school come together like that. But it was quite a lovely thing to watch.
That's brilliant. Well, I want to thank you for being my guest today, and I'm going to put all the information in the description of this video, so hopefully more people can find you. And guys, if you know any teachers or any schools that can help promote crocheting and bringing art into school, please contact Roslyn, and maybe we'll make it
That
happen.
would be amazing. Yeah. And of course, it's still an individual activity as well. So if you and your child want to have a go, then just get in touch with me. Join my Facebook group, which is now Crochet Art. And I'll see you there. Mention who you are and where you've seen me with Irina here. So, yeah.
Thank you so very much. I really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you.
Thank you. Thank you too much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you.